on the recording? Okay, Brian. We make mistakes. It's a little loud. There you go. And so today we're going to talk to Jill Savage, author of 12 books. One of them that we're going to dissect is No More Perfect Moms. I mean, we're going to go through all of them as a matter of fact. So fasten your seatbelt. We're going to learn and grow today. And here we go. It's time to dance, Jill. Okay.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott radio show, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening friend, will feel empowered to learn a new truth and embrace the life of your dreams. And if you have any questions today for my guest, Jill Savage, you're welcome to call 407-373-5959. I'm telling you, you need to put it on your favorites. That way you're not going, what'd she say again? What'd she say again? 407-373-5959. You can call and leave a message, or you can text me. Now, today we are going retro. We're going retro. It's been a long time since we've had Motherhood Monday, but really it's parenthood, but it doesn't sound great with a Monday. So Motherhood Monday with Jill Savage. She's the author of, like I said, 12 books, and she is the founder of Hearts at Home, which was the largest ministry for moms. And so today I want to ask you the question, what is the best way you can love your children? Do you know the answer to that? No, it's not to give them the latest toys. No, it's not to indulge them because you're feeling guilty, or maybe not feeling guilty. Maybe you want to indulge them because you felt that life was a little harder for you. The best way to love your child is to accept yourself, flaws and all. And so every time Jill Savage is on the show, we dive in deeper and deeper, because motherhood can become everything about us. We forget who we are. And then all of a sudden, we are just pouring everything into our kids. But is that good? Is it not? So we have to figure out what kind of parenting style have we embraced, and what does your child need? So every person is different. Although we mean well, we may cause more harm than good. So this is what we're going to talk about today with author Jill Savage. And she has been a regular on the show, and she's taken a sabbatical because she is so famous. And she finally made another appearance on the Lillian McDermott radio show. So we're going to discover and dive into your parenting style. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Jill Savage is back to do just that. Welcome back, Jill, to the Lillian McDermott radio show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Yeah. So share a little bit about your story, because it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. I'm a lifelong learner. And so when my kids were little, I honestly felt like I was better equipped to be a music teacher, which is what I went to college for, than to be a mother, which is what I was doing full time at the time. And so I looked around for, just like I used to go to teacher conferences. Where's the mommy school? Where's mommy conferences? And I couldn't find them. So approached our church and said, hey, would you guys let, our moms group do a first, just a one-time conference for moms? And they supported us. They said, absolutely. We planned our first event, thought maybe 400 would come, and 1,100 came.
Amazing.
And it just blew us away. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew. And so for 24 years, Hearts at Home brought encouragement to moms through our conferences. Now I do that online through my blog, jillsavage.org, and all of the resources that we work to create for motherhood and marriages. And our goal is to really strengthen relationships, whether that's the relationship with your spouse, relationship with your kids, relationship with your friends. We really believe that the more we understand ourselves, which I'm so glad for what we're talking about today, because I really want to help people to embrace who they are and learn to work with that, and to stop this comparison game that we tend to do with each other, where it always feels like, well, either honestly, it feels like we come up better than someone else or we come up worse than someone else. And what I want us to do is stop that and embrace who we are and let them be who they are.
Absolutely. And that takes a lot of dedication, Jill, because, you know, our strengths can become our weaknesses, especially with our children. I'm a great problem solver. And Jill, I could figure out a problem before it arrived. I could see something happening and I would fix it for our kids before they even experienced it. So guess what? There are some kids that did not learn how to solve their own problems. So now as they're adults, they're beginning to embrace their own problems and figuring it out now.
Yes. Yep,
Yes.
exactly. And so we have to recognize that in ourselves. We have to understand that that often happens. And the more we are self-aware, the better parent we will be.
Very good. And that is the topic today of my conversation with Jill Savage. And all of us, if you're a mom or a dad or an adopted person or a niece or uncle or an aunt, we all can use to learn. We could all learn these skills. And so we're going to continue our conversation with Jill Savage when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. I can hear the music now. So Jill, that is amazing that your first seminar that you thought you were going to have 400 women. I still get chills when you tell us that story.
It's crazy. It really is. Yeah.
At what point did you know that 1,100 people were going to be there?
Oh, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand.
And so did you have to make lots of adjustments?
No, food-wise, yes, but thankfully the site held 1,100, so we didn't have to turn anybody away that year. But we did move it the next year to a larger location, and we had 2,800 the next year. So wow. Most definitely, yeah, it was.
So these were people that were local, or these people that came from all over?
10 states for the first year, which we didn't even understand because all we did is promote it locally. But women were inviting their college roommates. You know, at first it was our target audience was stay-at-home moms. And I think that was so unique, you know, that, hey, there's a conference for stay-at-home moms. I think that people were, you know, picking up the phone going, hey, there's this event. You want to come? And so their sister or their sister-in-law or their college roommate, you know, they were inviting from other states, and they came in and had a girls' weekend.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing to have that. Because I belonged to a mom's group when I was younger, and I felt the same way. I wish there was mommy college. And there was. I found when Brittany, my youngest daughter, when she was 2, I found out that I had already started this. I wanted to do something with my daughter, put her in a school. And I found a co-op that was associated with a university. Mm-hmm. And so we all taught our children, and we took turns, and that was the greatest, because then we had on a Tuesday night, we had to take a course, or we got to take a course. We'd learn about different things. And trust me, even though I was looking for how to be the perfect mom, I still had a lot of shortcomings because I was thinking about what I wanted, not necessarily what my child wanted.
Right. So true.
And we're back. So that would be a good segue to get started on the second segment. Okay.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Time to dance.
You can text Lillian or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. once again, here's Lillian.
Here we go. And this is Lillian McDermott, and I'm welcoming you to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow with one another. Today's teacher is Jill Savage. She is the founder of Hearts at Home. This is a mom's ministry, and she's author of 12 books. And if you want to find a book that she may have written, just put "No More Perfect" and whatever follows she wrote. Right, Jill?
Yes.
If it works, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. So we were talking off the air, and I'm so grateful that these conversations are being recorded now, because how many times have we said, I wish we could have recorded this conversation? Okay, so now we do that, and you can find it at whenyouneedafriend.com. Click on the YouTube button, and it'll take you there. So while we were talking on the break, we were discussing about how important it was for me. Every job I hold, I wanted to be the best at it. It comes from childhood insecurities and being told I would never amount to much. So that was my underlying conversation that was driving me. Well, I wanted to be the best mommy for my children. And I sought after different groups, organizations, even belonged to a college that had a mom's co-op, mom and dads, because dads were joining us as well. And I did what I felt I needed to do for my kids, but I did not consider them and what they needed. What is your advice as we're going in that direction, Jill?
Well, exactly. I think that oftentimes we impose our likes, our dislikes, our preferences on our kids. And so we need to understand who we are and embrace that. But we also need to understand who they are and embrace that. And I think a story from my friend Sandy probably illustrates this best. So Sandy, one of the things I talk about is with parents is, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Mm-hmm. And an introvert and extrovert has not to do with your social skills, but with how you're refueled. Mm-hmm. So introverts are refueled by being alone.
Yes.
Extroverts are refueled by being with people.
Yes.
Well, Sandy took her young son, and he was probably only 4 at the time, to the park. And when they pulled into the park, she noticed that no one else was there. And Sandy is an introvert. And so immediately it takes her back to her childhood. And she's like, oh my gosh, look. And she says to her son, she says, look, you've got the entire park to yourself. How exciting. And he kind of looked around, and she went to get him out of the car, and he says, but Mommy, I go to the park to play with friends. And so in that moment, what she realized was an absolute delight in her childhood, and that would be to play on the park alone, was absolutely not what her son, who was obviously probably an extrovert, would appreciate. And so it's such a simple little thing, but yet we need to know ourselves, and we need to start paying attention to those things in our kids as we see them maybe wired differently than we are.
So when we see that our child is an extrovert and maybe we're introvert, or vice versa, then what is it that we need to do? What do we need to start doing for them?
Well, we need to pay attention to what brings life to them. And I'll give you an example in our own home, in our own family. My granddaughter is an extreme extrovert. Her parents are both extreme introverts.
Yes.
So they would invent, and they homeschool, which is delightful for them. But
torture for her.
Yes. And so it brings wonderful things to her life in other ways, but it doesn't have that people piece.
Yeah.
And so what they've really had to learn to do is they have to understand that she needs that people piece. And so they belong to a co-op, they belong to other groups that will allow them, to allow her to be with other kids. They do play dates. Where they would rather not mess with it, but they recognize that she needs it. They let us take her to church with us on Sunday, and she just loves Sunday school because she's in a classroom setting. And so, they've really had to come to understand that, value that, and then provide what her personality needs.
I love that. So we're talking about a child's personality, but then there's the parent's personality and our parenting style. So there are different parenting styles, and I really want to hone in on that this segment. Tell us a little bit about the different personality styles and what we need to be aware of in ourselves.
Right. Well, introvert extrovert is one of the first ones that I think we need to be aware of. I did not know that I was an introvert until I was way down the mothering journey. I would have thought I was an extrovert because I don't mind being with people. I can carry a conversation. I'm fine being in social settings. But at the same time, I look back. And I can remember when number 4 was born, okay? So the kids at that time were 12, 10, 6, and a newborn. And we eventually adopted number 5. But at this point in time, I'm with a newborn. I'm a stay-at-home mom. And I remember saying to my husband one day, he came home, and I had this probably crazy woman look in my eyes. And I said, I want to cut a deal with you. And he was like, what? And I'm like, when you get home from work, I need 30 minutes in my bedroom alone.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do. And so what I ended up doing, I would take my Bible into my bedroom. I would take the newspaper into my bedroom. I didn't even know what was going on in the world. I didn't know what day it was, And so I'd read the newspaper. I'd read a little bit of my Bible. I'd kind of just take a deep breath. And they began to call it, he and the kids called it Daddy Wrestle Time.
Uh-huh.
So they would have 30 minutes of Daddy Wrestle Time. And that was what I needed to kind of it was like I pulled up to the filling station. Mm-hmm. And then I could get through the evening. So not knowing that, here I was, a mother of 4, never alone, and yet my personality needed to be alone. So I had to begin to learn to not apologize for that need. I had to learn to understand that I needed to be responsible for pulling up to the filling station myself. Nobody was going to give that to me. And so I needed to learn to ask for what I needed. And I have a friend who's wired the same way as I am. And, when her birthday came around, her husband said, what do you want for your birthday? And she said, I want to go to a hotel for 24 hours by myself. And that very
I can relate to that.
he found her a hotel room no less than 10 miles from their house. And he took her to the hotel, checked her in, gave her a kiss, and said, goodbye, honey. I love you. Enjoy your 24 hours. The best birthday gift she could have ever had.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So introvert, extrovert, knowing that is important. What would be the next step to know?
Right. So the next one would be high capacity, low capacity. Okay. And when we talk about capacity, what we are talking about is we're talking about how many balls you can juggle before you become overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. This is really important for us to understand this about ourselves because I am high capacity, but I have many friends that are low capacity.
Yes.
One is not better than the other. You have to understand how it is that you've been wired. So for instance, I am high capacity, but my daughter, who is a mother of 2 littles, is low capacity. And so she needs to know, she, used to feel like there was something wrong with her. No, there's nothing wrong with her. She just has the need to slow down. She has that need to not put too much on her plate, or she begins to get some extreme anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so she needs to understand that about herself. But if we don't understand that, we look at someone that is different than ourselves and we go, what's wrong with me? I should be able to do as much as you do. No, that's not true. And here's the deal. We need each other.
Sure.
My low capacity girlfriends slow me down. And I, as a high capacity girlfriend, help them to sometimes speed up in those moments where they need to juggle a few balls. And so they can learn from some of the skills that I have honed to be able to do that. And so we need each other. We fill each other's gaps.
Do you feel that you've gotten better at it? Because I'm trying to remember when I was a younger mom, how much capacity I had. I feel now I have a little bit more capacity, but that I'm not juggling a bunch of little kids.
Right.
So let's talk about that. At what point does that change in your body, or does it remain the same?
I think sometimes, that to a certain extent, we are what we are. But I think that we learn different coping skills, number one, and I think we do have different seasons of life.
Sure.
So certainly we've got to, I'm in the same season you are, where I don't have littles around me all the time. And so, that does change things. But I'll tell you, this affects marriage. My husband is medium to low capacity, where I am more medium to high capacity. And so it just is. Has he learned how to juggle things in some crazy seasons of life? Yes. But when he and I travel, when we're on the road, which we are quite a bit, he needs a day on the end to recover. I don't. I don't. I can, in fact, we just got back in town late last night, and here I am, we're having a conversation in my time, 7 a.m. the next morning. And so that I can do that. He would not have scheduled a call at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning after being gone all weekend. He just wouldn't have done that because he knows himself better, and he knows himself that he needs that recovery time. And
this is a topic, Jill, that we could probably do a whole show on, because when you're married to someone who has a low capacity versus your high capacity, that could create other issues in a marriage.
Yes, it does. And so I've had to learn, again, neither one is right or wrong. They just are. So, that's one of the first places that it can really hurt marriage or even friendship, even, with other women, because you say to them, or you say to yourself, man, she just can't keep up. She just can't. So we judge each other, and we can do that in our marriage. And instead, what we have to do is go, no, this is the way that God has wired you. This is the way he's wired me. Both are completely fine, but I need to honor that in you, and I need to honor that in me.
Sure.
And I need to recognize what you bring to my life, because my husband does slow me down, and I value that. And he values that sometimes I push him a little harder in that, and he gets a little bit more done. And so we balance each other out.
That's good. That's good. I think when we can use it for balancing, that would be good. Okay, so what's the next step that we need to be aware of?
Well, probably innie or outie. Are you an innie or an outie? And we're not talking about belly buttons here. We're talking about how you organize your stuff.
How you organize your stuff, innie or outie. I am curious about this, Jill Savage. And so if you have any question for Jill about being a mom or about your personality style and how you raise your children, then you can tune in or call 407-373-5959. And we're going to continue our conversation with Jill when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. I made it before the countdown already is over. Innie or outie? This is going to be a cute one. Okay,
yes, this one's a lot of fun.
Let's talk, since we're off the air and this is not part of the topic today, personality styles for our children or for ourselves, our personality style and our parenting style. Do these correspond to the parenting style as well? Like if I am a high capacity, which I'm married to a lower capacity, medium to low capacity. So does that? Okay.
It does. It affects our, right. Absolutely. And so, and it affects also the way that we go back. We may be high capacity ourselves, but we may have a low capacity child.
Yes. Okay. So that's a great conversation there.
Yeah.
Because you gave a great example with introvert and extrovert personality style. I wrote an article, probably last year, and it was it was beyond the golden rule. When you're a child, you're taught to treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
That supported us when we were a child, and we were trying to, as a child, we think everybody thinks like us.
Right.
But as you get older, that's just not, it doesn't
So
support you
true.
anymore. So when it comes to the high capacity innie or outie, and by the way, how many others do you have? Because I want to make sure I balance it out.
I think there's five or six.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so, but what about authoritarian or authoritative, or how does that play into those parenting styles?
Well, I don't know that that would apply as much on this because this is more your personality style and learning how to incorporate that into your parenting. I think oftentimes, authoritative and authoritarian, that comes from a different angle. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's personality styles.
But with the personality styles, it's very important to be clear with your intention.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Absolutely.
We'll make sure that we address clear intention. And so I know that people listening to you right now are probably going, oh my, she's the perfect mom. Share a little bit about...
No, when we talk about any outie, you'll find that out. Yeah, we're not going there. Yeah.
That's too funny. Perfect imperfection. No, it's infection.
Perfection infection.
Perfection infection, that's it.
Yes.
I was trying to remember the terminology that you use.
Yes. Perfection infection.
And that can really motivate. You know what, Jill? Even when I studied, I'm a graduate of Bible Study Fellowship. Even when I was studying God's Word, I kept looking for perfect saints and perfect people that God.
Oh gosh, God uses everybody that is so imperfect.
I know. And every week I go, but Abraham was so imperfect, and Moses. I'm like, when is God going to call perfect people?
Nope. It's not the way He works. I love it.
Man. It is. It was. And it finally dawned on me when I gave up trying to be perfect.
Right. Exactly.
That's
so
when it made sense. Everybody kept saying, but this is good news. I'm like, no, it's not good news. I'm working towards perfection.
Yeah, in heaven. It's the only place you're going to find it.
What was your underlying conversation as you were raising your children as a mom? What was your underlying conversation that you learned as a child?
My underlying conversation that I learned as a child, definitely achievement. Achievement was big. My parents were very loving, but they also achievement was important to them. And, this firstborn leader, became very achievement focused. And so I definitely found that in motherhood, which is part of the reason that No More Perfect Moms was, part of my journey.
Very good. Okay, so now we're back. Third segment. You know what happens here. I'll talk a little bit about my social media and website, and then I'll reintroduce you, okay?
Sounds good.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I am your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my goal that we learn from each other. Go through life with that childlike wonder that you see when you go to the park, that there's no differences. It's only friends when you see a child at play at the park, unless you've injected your own biases already. And so I want to encourage you to continue this friend conversation that we start here on the show and let it spill over to whenyouneedafriend.com. I want to encourage you to become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com. Tell your friends, your family, neighbors, anyone. There's so much conversation about being responsible. And that word responsibility is the kind that leads to empowerment and freedom. So please go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Check out my sponsors while you're there. Become a subscriber. Remember, those sponsors are the reason that I am on the air. So make sure you check out my sponsors and figure out a way that you can support them the way they're supporting the show. Now check out everything about whenyouneedafriend.com. There's so much to do there. Then there's also my social media. Check out my social media. You can click on it right at whenyouneedafriend.com. Play, enjoy, learn, and let's all grow together. As you know, you can hear me on demand, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, and you can call me at 407-373-5959. I want to encourage you to leave a message. If you don't leave a message, then I don't know what you need, and I do not call back. So make sure you leave a message or you text me, and I will respond to you within the time allotted that I have. And so today we are talking about the personality style, your personality style, and how awareness is key when raising a child with a different or maybe a similar personality style. Jill is nodding her head. We have parenting expert Jill Savage, who is the founder of Hearts at Home. This is one of the largest mom ministries, and she's the author of 12 books. And as I said earlier, if No More Perfect is in the title, chances whatever follows it, she wrote. So No More Perfect Mom, No More Perfect Kids. I know that you have Better Together, that's as well. So Jill Savage, thank you so much, Jill, for waking up early after a busy, busy week and still being here as a friend of the Lillian McDermott radio show.
Glad to be here. Glad we're having a conversation.
Wonderful. So before we went on the break, we talked about the introvert and extrovert, becoming aware of your style, introvert, extrovert, high capacity, low capacity. And now we're going to talk about innies and outies, and it has nothing to do with our belly button, you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay.
So innie outie refers to how you organize your stuff. So an innie files, an outie piles. And so what we have to understand is that, you know what, we usually are going to go in one of those two directions. We're either a filer or we're a piler. And so we need to understand that that's the way we operate. I am an outie. I am a piler. Mm-hmm. Not only now that I'm actually kind of a reformed outie because my piling was stressing me out.
Yes.
But I still need to understand that I am an outie in that if I have a journal and I make my to-do list in a journal, or a notebook and it's closed, I will not use it. I have to make my to-do list on a sticky note. And that sticky note needs to be on my computer or on my desk or somewhere where I can see it. Because for outies, it needs to be out in sight. For innies, they remember that it's in that notebook. They're not driven by seeing it. It's up there in their mind. And so I really needed to understand this. Now, how does this affect us as parents? Well, if you're an innie parent and you have an outie kid, which I think to some extent all kids are outies to some degree until they learn some organizational skills. But, I have a son that he's now 21. His bedroom was rarely a mess. He just naturally, now the other four, totally different. But he's you could see his inniness from a very early age. Mm-hmm. And so, it's particularly difficult for an innie parent to have an outie child. Mm-hmm. But here's where else it shows itself. It shows it in relationships. So marriages can experience a lot of conflict if one is an innie and one is an outie. Friendships, mom friendships, and this is where it really showed up in my life. So I'll tell you a story. I was friends with a gal that, we just did life together. We did motherhood together while our kids were young. Mm-hmm. And I would come to her house on Tuesdays and we would do her laundry together. We called ourselves laundry buddies. And then she'd come to my house on Thursdays and we do my laundry. And, but I always felt a little less than every time I was at her house. Why? Because she was an innie and I was an outie. Now, at that point in time, I didn't know innie and outie, and I didn't even have a label for this. I just knew what it felt like. Sure. And it felt like she was more organized than I was. It felt like she had a more organized house. And so I remember we were sitting at her dining room table one day, and I looked around, and I just blurted out, "Where's your mail?" what do you mean my mail? And I'm like, where's your mail that you got out of your mailbox like yesterday? Because mine is sitting on my kitchen counter along with the mail from the day before. And I don't see your mail anywhere. And she started laughing, and she walked over to the kitchen cabinet and she pulled out like a hanging file box. And she showed me her hanging file box, and it had like bills to pay, and it had, you know, all these different organizing elements to it. And she said, when I get the mail, I pull the box out of the cabinet, I go through the mail, throw away what I need, I put the rest of it where it goes in here. And I went, oh my gosh, I've never thought of such a thing. And so at that point, I was like, oh, I can learn, because my outiness was stressing me out.
Yes.
So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to compare myself to her anymore. I'm going to let her help fill my gaps. And so when she would come to my house on Thursdays, I can remember, like, my husband was getting ready to graduate from college, and we were doing like an open house, and I had all these invitations on the table. And I said to her, she came over, and I said, what would you do with these? Because they were spread all over the table, you know, what was ready to be addressed and what needed to be addressed, and, you know, all of that, and what needed to be stuffed in the envelopes. And she looked at it and she said, well, do you have a basket? And I said, yeah, probably. She said, I would put it all in a basket and work out of the basket. So then you can grab the basket and you can set it off the table and you can use the table. I was like, I've never thought of such a thing. So what a difference that made. I honestly became a better mom because I learned from my friend, but I stopped comparing myself to her. Yes. And I had a label for this. I later discovered I think I created the innie outie label. Nobody ever said it to me, but it was like, she's an innie and I'm an outie, and I have to be okay with that. But I also have kids who are different than I am. So when my outiness starts getting a little crazy, like when I'm traveling, like as much as I am, I can become really outie. Yep. Because I don't have time for those, to be able to keep things as organized. Well, that can stress out my 21-year-old son who's an innie. So we need to recognize how we affect each other and recognize the way that our children are, the way that our spouse is, honor that in them, but also honor ourselves in being true to ourselves.
You know, I love that. I think that when we work together and we learn from each other, you could have blown up that relationship just passing judgment on yourself, thinking that she was passing judgment on you, but the reality is you were passing judgment on her and yourself. Yep. Isn't it amazing how that works? We see in others, we see in others who we are. And we judge others for who we are. We got to get past that. We just got to get past that. Okay, real quick. What's number 4? Okay.
Internal processor or external processor?
Okay.
All right. So an internal processor thinks about it, thinks about it, thinks about it, thinks about it, and thinks about it some more. And then doesn't say anything about whatever it is until they have sorted it all out in their head. An external processor talks about it, talks about it, talks about it, and talks about it some more. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example in marriage. My husband is an external processor. I am an internal processor. Mm-hmm. What he says is, I think about it, think about it, think about it, and then tell him what we've decided.
You have an executive committee in your head, don't you?
Exactly. It's all in there. And then he does the opposite. You know, he talks about it and talks about it and talks about it. But I used to think that his talking about it was being wishy-washy. Like he would say, you know, we're going to be buying a new car. And he would say, I think we should have a Honda. I think we should go with a Honda this time. You know, he would say that on Monday. And then on Tuesday, he would say, you know, I think we ought to go with a Toyota. I think that's what we'll go. And then on Wednesday, it would be yet another kind of car. And I'm like, you are so wishy-washy. Well, what I didn't understand is, he was actually externally processing.
So is he an extrovert too? He's an extrovert.
He is, but it doesn't always work that way.
Because I heard that how do you know an extrovert is thinking? Is because they're talking. So that is how, because I'm an extrovert. I can relate to that. I think and process outside my head, but I also am internalized. I also think about it. So we're going to continue our conversation. Hang on to your seatbelt. We're still learning from our own personality styles and how it affects our children when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. It actually affects our family, our entire family.
Yes.
So let's continue our conversation and let's grow together. We'll be right here waiting for you. Yeah, it's amazing, the different things that we do to ourselves. Now, I know that my husband and I are like your husband and you, but we're opposites.
Opposites.
So Robert, my husband, is the internal processor.
Yep.
He is, sometimes I'd ask him a question and he'd stroke his goatee. Or he'll be driving and he won't even acknowledge it. And I'll go, did you hear me? I'm thinking. Well, tell me you're thinking. Don't just, it's like I'm thinking that he's just like totally ignoring me. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. And because as an internal processor, we don't think to tell you what we're thinking because it's all going on up here. And so I've really had to learn how to change that. I've had to learn to let him know, hey, I've been thinking about this, or hey, I've been tossing this around in my head. So I'm pushing my thoughts to him.
Good for you, Jill. Good.
But yeah, it is not easy for those of us that don't naturally talk it out.
Yeah. Especially, since we're off the air, and I'm going to encourage people to listen to some of your past shows, but especially when you're dealing with difficult times in your marriage or difficult times in your family.
Yes.
How do you reach out? How do you send out that olive branch to your spouse or to anyone when you're an internal processor? What are some tips for that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Even if you have an internal processing kid, let's talk about that when we get back on, because I can give some suggestions for how to handle that.
Okay, so when we get back, we have about 7 to 8 minutes. Okay, so so tell me, we have and
then all we have after that is spontaneous or structured.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can do it.
Yeah, we'll be good.
It's funny because I am the same way. My outiness stresses me out. So I've learned to be very organized. Yeah, like right now, I'll look at the countertop right there, and there's like a little piles. And so I think once a week I become an innie, and during the week I'm like an outie. And I'm like well, I think I'm more internally. I process through journals.
Okay,
that's how I process by writing, and that's my conversation with God.
Right.
With the divine. Yeah. For those of you who call, there's so many different ways to God. So I would say the divine. And so it's interesting how Robert and I have made some incredible adjustments, and we do acknowledge and appreciate each other's different styles.
There is. I think that relationship with Jesus Christ is so important, and I do internally process that through, I journal my prayers.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And I find that I stay more focused. I just write it out as a letter.
Yeah. That's how I started when I was a little girl. I used to write little love letters to God. Yeah. And later on I said, I've been journaling since I was a little kid. I didn't even know it.
Yep.
So important to write down how you feel.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
I am so enjoying my conversation with Jill Savage on and off the air. I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, and after the show you can click on that YouTube button and you can watch how beautiful and just radiant she is, and how her wisdom has made her more beautiful. Sometimes our experiences in life can just destroy us. And I want, for those of you who this is the first time you've heard of Jill Savage, she's had an incredible life. She's had trying times in her life, very trying, that most of us would crawl in a fetal position and just want to give up. This woman wears a superhero cape underneath her garment. She is wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill, for being a part of the Lillian McDermott radio show today. And I want to encourage you to learn a little bit more about Jill. You can go to jillsavage.org and learn about her different ministries, the different books, because I'm sure it'll resonate. This is a woman who, flawed in many ways, found perfection in her imperfections. So I want to appreciate, I appreciate you, Jill, in so many different levels. So let's talk a little bit more about the internal, external processors when it comes to our children.
Right. Well, I think that this is really important because particularly an external processing mama can be really critical of an internal processing child.
How so?
Because they don't talk. And so,
okay.
There's something wrong with you. Well, no, there isn't anything wrong with them, but you have to learn how to figure out ways to draw them out. So I'll give you an example, I have an internal processing son. And when, you were just talking about the difficulties. So, one of the challenges that we have faced, my husband and I talk about it in our No More Perfect Marriages book, was when our marriage blew up with his infidelity and his own depression. So in that season, he eventually left and he was gone for 4 months. Now that, that affected me. That affected our children.
Everybody.
So we had, at that time, three young adult children and 2 teenagers still at home. And it was during that season that I thought, I have to, because my internal processing youngest was not talking. And so I'm like, we have to figure out something. So that's when I identified the value of what I called a pillow journal. And so I took a notebook. And I just wrote a couple of things, to him. I just said, hey, Austin, I know this is a hard season. It's hard for me. Here are some of the feelings that I'm struggling with. And I shared what they were. And I said, can you identify some of the feelings? I actually put a feeling list in the journal. And I said, can you look at this list and tell me some of the feelings you're doing, you're feeling? And I said, when you're done with it, just throw it on my pillow. And so I put it on his pillow.
I love that, Jill.
We didn't even talk about it. I just put it on his pillow for him to find. It took several days and it suddenly appeared on my pillow. And so then, I was able to read it and then I asked him a few more questions. So it was just sharing what was going on inside of me and trying to, engage what was going on inside of him. And so sometimes we have to recognize that, we have to use some different strategies to draw our kids out, especially if they're internal processors, or if we're an internal processor and they're an external processor. So this is me and my daughter, Erica. Okay. Erica can talk my ears off. Okay. And this internal processing mama has to go, okay, Erica, I have to say to myself, she needs to talk. I need to listen. I need to stay engaged. I need to draw her out. She just wants to, she processes our relationship through talking. And a lot of times it wears me out as an introvert and as an internal processing person. That wears me out, but I have to value that and honor that in her. So, and recognize how much she needs that. And that's an important part of our relationship.
So this is, just absolutely wonderful. Awareness is key. Everything you're saying, every time, it's just that awareness. Many of us go through life just unaware and acting out of our subconscious mind. These are the tapes that have been playing in our body our whole entire life that we learned when we were young. So that awareness, that stopping. Let's go through the last one before we move any further and dive into how do we get this information and become aware.
So the last one is spontaneous or structured.
Okay.
Are you spontaneous or structured? And so structured probably is going to have, very organized in that, this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens. And so a structured mama will make sure that, every Tuesday morning they go to, they go to reading at the library. And every Wednesday night we do a family night as a family or whatever. That's more structured. A spontaneous mama just kind of goes with whatever feels good in that moment. And so a structured mama, though, can over-structure her kids.
Yes.
And a spontaneous mama can miss out on opportunities for her kids because she doesn't grab them.
Sure.
And so we need to recognize, neither one is wrong. They are both right. They are both unique to who we are, but we recognize that there are strengths with them, but there are also weaknesses with them. And if you are a structured mama with a spontaneous child, your overstructuring your structuring will feel overstructured to that child. And so we have to be careful about that. We have to recognize.
What's a good tip?
So a good tip is to not structure out, not plan out every minute of your day and every minute of your child's day, because that child needs spontaneity. They need a sense of space and margin in their life. So that would be one very practical tip. Another one would be, if you're very structured, put some spontaneous into your life. So like one of the things we used to do as a family is we did what we called surprise rides. And a surprise ride is when my husband and I, or I alone, if it was me home with the kids, but we would think through, hey, I'm going to surprise the kids and take them putt-putt golfing, or I'm going to surprise them and take them to the park. Or we're going to go get ice cream. And so in that moment, I think about it and then I go, surprise ride. And Mark and I are doing it together, and the kids are like, what? And they know they have 1 minute to put their shoes on and get in the car. And they don't know.
I love it.
It's going to be fun. See, I'm more structured, but I learned to do some spontaneous things like that particularly my spontaneous kiddos loved.
Yes, that sounds like fun. It's just, you can call me anytime. Say you got a minute to get ready, I'll be right there. So how do we become aware of our personalities? Are there different, is there a test can take?
Absolutely. Or? Yes, there is. So there are two different ones that I think are very helpful. One you'll find on my blog at jillsavage.org. You'll find as it relates to marriage, it says take the No More Perfect Marriages e-challenge.
Okay.
There's a little button right on the front of my website at jillsavage.org, and you can take that as it relates to marriage. If you want to just learn it for yourself, your own mothering personality style, if you hop over to my website, bettertogetherbook.org, bettertogetherbook.org, and you'll see, it'll say, what's your mothering personality? Take the quiz. And both of those are free quizzes. They're free. They're no cost to them, but they help you. They ask questions that help you identify what you are, and also help you to identify what that implies,
yes,
and how that can affect your relationship.
Very good. Very good. It is great tips. I mean, I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to talk and record off the air as well, because, some of the things we just can't cover. There's so much to talk about. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation, Jill, when you return. I'm looking forward to that as well. I know you're really busy, so I don't know when that'll be. That's between you and Ashley. But great tips today for all of us, because being an aware parent is so important.
Yes.
Because it's not right or wrong. It's just awareness. It just is. And if we can work with what is, right?
Yep. It's not right or wrong. It's just different, and different is okay.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jill, for being on the show today. And to you, my listening friend and my viewing friend, it is our goal as parents to raise children that become self-sufficient young adults. But in order to do that, it's good if you start with yourself. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Very good. Yes. So are you off today? Do you have your day scheduled today?
No, I don't even have to get in the car today. Woo!
Not even? I bet you Mark is going to surprise you with a surprise ride.
He knows better than that today.
Well, thank you so much. Any last minute tips that you would like to share with my viewing friends for today's topic? Is there anything that kept reoccurring for you that was a recurring lesson that we need to become aware?
Well, I just think that, I have to literally, I have the tendency, I think pride can sneak in so easily that we think our way is the right way. Mm-hmm. And so I constantly have to say to myself, I preach it to myself, it's not wrong. It's just different. It's not wrong. It's just different. My husband says sometimes I preach it to myself through clenched teeth, it's not wrong. It's just different.
Sure.
But seriously, because I think that oftentimes we do think our way is the right way, and we do damage criticizing our kids. We do damage not accepting what they bring. Like, for instance, maybe your spouse helps to empty the dishwasher. Your kids help to empty the dishwasher or fill it. And then you're quick to say, don't do it that way. That's the wrong way. And so I think those are the places where we have to bite our tongue. We have to be grateful that they are helping, and we have to not undo what they have done, because that sends a message that you're not good enough.
You're not enough. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think that gratitude is the key throughout, being thankful that you have a child that's different, that takes you to that next level of love, that next level of understanding, that next level of acceptance. I'm telling you, I learned unconditional love through my children.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember, Jill, one time I was so upset. I think with all of them. I mean, it's like at one point, you're upset with that child, and you're thinking, I remember I was in my private area where I journaled, and it was like at 3 or 2 o'clock. I couldn't sleep. I was so upset. And I started journaling, and I said, how can I forgive them? How can my relationship with these kids ever be the same? And I think it was one child in particular, that particular time. And when I journal, I wait for a response. I wait for that internal voice, that voice of the divine to speak to me. And I got, the way I have loved you. In other words, I'm not perfect either. I have messed up my life, but yet I am loved no matter what. And at that moment, I thought, this is unconditional love. I didn't grow up with unconditional love. The love I experienced was very conditional.
Right.
So what does that mean?
Now, in my case, I grew up with unconditional love. So my mother and father love well. And I'm grateful for that. I dedicated my No More Perfect Kids book to them because they did love well. But I see that in my husband. Because he also was raised in not a loving home, and there certainly was no unconditional love. I don't even know that there was conditional love at times.
Yeah.
And so I definitely see how that affects you all the way into your adult years.
It does. It does. And that awareness is key. And knowing that we've got a long way to go when it comes to learning how to truly love.
Yes.
I had this, have you heard of Don Miguel Ruiz? Okay, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote the 4 Agreements, and his son, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., has been on my show. He's also an author and has taken the Toltec tradition to paper. He's written some wonderful books. And so I had just written an article about conditional love being abuse. And I had said something to him, it's like, it's abusive. Right. And he said to me, we got into this, not an argument, but as a difference of philosophy. Like just you and I were talking about, vaccine, and you said we have a difference of opinion there. And I knew I had a difference of opinion, but I'm kind of like understanding. He said, conditional love is love. And I'm like, no, conditional love is abuse. And he goes, it's love. That's all they know how to do. So you learn and you grow to be unconditional. But conditional love is love. It's the way you love.
Interesting.
And it's semantics. It really is semantics. You just have to get over the semantics of it.
Right.
But I'm thinking conditional love is abuse. If you don't do it, this is how I grew up. If you don't do exactly what I say, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to give you the cold shoulder until you surrender.
Right. And you know what? Even good parents do that, because one of the things I talk with parents about is never let your anger be your child's consequence. Because that's what happens is if that child doesn't do it the way we want, and whether it's disobedience or difference, whether it is, we really have to recognize that oftentimes our anger becomes their consequence. And then that's when conditional love enters into the scene.
Yeah, it's so many things. I mean, there's no manual to be a good parent, but I'm glad that you are out there trying to set the trail for us to learn and grow from what you've gone through. Because I always, they say that grandparents are great parents. This is our opportunity to make it up to our kids.
That's right. Isn't that the
Spoiling our
truth?
grandchildren.
I
But
love it.
Jill, thank you so much for being
Thanks for having
on the
me.
podcast, and I hope that you have a day of replenishment today.
Thank you.